Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a special episode of El Koki Otaku. Today, we're stepping into the world of cursed energy and high stakes battle as we explore the next and new chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen with the Culling Games, about to shake the Sorcerer world. And I'm honored to be joined by the incredible voice behind two of its most powerful characters. I love them. Adam McArthur, the voice of Yuji Itadori, and Kayleigh McKee, the voice of Yuta Okkotsu. Adam, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
To kick it off, this world so excited going on with this series. Season 3 brings us into the chaos of the Culling Games, where survival, morality, and power collide. When you both step back into the recording booth, what emotional weight from the Shibuya Incident, in case of Ada, did you carry into Yuji and Yuta mindset from the next chapter, especially coming from the movie Jujutsu Kaisen 0?
Yeah, it's been a fun challenge, sort of bringing the Yuji we know from season 1, who's experienced everything that he's experienced in season 2, into season 3. I think, we find out really quickly in his dealings with Hikari that Yuji has sort of come to this resolve about being a cog in a greater plan that's happening and his role in all of this stuff. So he's sort of got a more he understands his purpose a little bit more in the grand scheme of all that's going on, yet he has still gone through all the trauma that he went through in season 2. So bringing that kind of emotional weight with a new resolved intensity has been sort of where he's landed and where his new normal is.
Yeah, and for Yuta, I feel like he was this inexperienced and sort of like traumatized kid in JJK0 that was, full of fear of the world and of himself, feeling haunted by this tragedy in his past, figuratively and kind of literally, right? Then finding his friends who helped him like come into himself and find his strength. Then he, the moment he did that and found that resolve, he left on a new mission and had that time to sort of develop separately from the situations that were happening, only to, I think he needed that time, right, to grow into who he needed to be, to come back with Gojo now gone, and being one of the few people who he feels can keep the ball rolling on what Gojo, the path that Gojo had started to try and protect everyone, but with how immense his cursed energy is, and being that distant relative, I feel like he was positioned then in this more mature position to sell that and to be that. And so it was really cool to find out how to, go through that maturity, show it in my performance, and show him as he grows, because he's older and he has that new confidence and power. And I was excited to do it for so long, and I was like practicing it to myself and like thinking about like what sort of things I would do. So it was really cool to finally get in the booth and do it.
And I'm sure for those who doesn't read the manga but are anime follower like me, we all scream when we saw finally Yuta and Yuji, like, it's happening, guys, it's happening. It's happening. And I need to because many people doesn't see the magic what it takes to be the voice actor delivering those feelings through the voice. So Adam, you just continue to carry the emotional consequence of Sukuna and the destruction around him. How do you convey that internal struggle while keeping Yuji's humanity and optimism alive? Because I would have been give up already a long time ago. I'll just throw everything like, I'm done.
Yeah, I know. I say all the time, I think all the stuff that's happened to him, he could very well be the villain in this story. He could turn bad from everything that's happened. No, for me, my goal was to make all of the trauma and things that happened to Yuji feel as real as possible. So the task for me was like, obviously I haven't lived through the same experiences, but the task was to make it feel as real for myself as possible. So if you boil it down as simply as possible, the emotions Yuji are feeling in those moments are guilt, failure, very real human emotions that we've all felt in some capacity through our own lives. And so you just, my process was basically to just be emotionally available enough to remember what it feels like to feel that. And so when I step into Yuji's shoes, feeling the weight of that is what comes through and shines the most. So I feel like there were sessions where I walked in and did some of those scenes, and I felt bad. Like I was feeling guilty. And I know that if I'm feeling it, genuinely feeling it, not acting like I'm feeling it, but genuinely feeling it, that's going to come across in my voice. And I think it did. There was one scene in season 2 that, I'm going in and I record week to week. So I would go in and do these kind of heavy traumatic scenes, and then I'd leave and go and try and live a normal life, and then come back the next week and have to get in the headspace again. So by like the 3rd or 4th week, there was a moment where I was in the booth and I felt like I was acting like how I was in the previous scenes, meaning like I was sort of trying to emulate feeling sad, and I stopped. I talked to our director, Kirsty. I was like, okay, listen, I'm faking this because I don't believe it. I'm like watching myself be an actor as opposed to like being so in the moment that I'm feeling it myself. So I said, hold on a second. I need a minute. I've got to go like just get my head right. And came back, and then the very next take is what ended up in the show. It's just a matter of like being emotionally available and being in touch with your feelings as I don't know, however that sounds.
So great to hear about this, because as a non-art person, for me it's so hard to imagine that challenge as the voice. Doing another 180 degree, like a 90-degree change just in the next season, which you might feel it was yesterday, but now we are here. We need to make it happen. And talking about those challenge, Kayleigh, Yuta returned as someone who has grown immensely since the last time we saw him, like you mentioned. How did you adjust Yuta's voice or emotional tone to reflect the evolution from this event, from Jujutsu Kaisen to today, what's going on right now in each week, new episode?
Yeah, I really wanted to take, he in Jujutsu Kaisen 0, he's a very soft spoken individual, and I feel like that came from timidity, fear, and uncertainty, like that sort of thing. But at his core, he is sort of a softer individual. But I think now the big thing that I wanted to get across was his softness now is not because of timidity, but because of compassion and because of confidence. He's soft-spoken because that's who he is, and he doesn't have to be anything else. Because he reserves his energy to get the job done, and he reserves his energy for comforting others who need it. And I think that was the biggest change that I wanted to make, where he's still soft, but it's an entirely different feeling of openness rather than closed.
I want to wrap it up with a what if question.
Okay.
Both characters have dealt a lot with everything, with the society, with the organization, with the friend, with the inner demons, with everything. If Yuji and Yuta had a moment to talk before entering to the Culling Game battlefield, what do you think they will say to each other as a word of advice about what it truly means to be a sorcerer, or just like, hey, before we get here, keep in mind this?
The only thing I can think of is that Yuji would be like, wait a second, you're bringing your sword? And Yuta would be like, yeah, I'm bringing my sword. And then Yuji would be like, well, do you think like I needed a sword. Like should I have gotten a sword?
Yeah.
Meanwhile,
you have a knife.
yeah, no. Meanwhile, I feel like as Yuji's asking, Yuta's like slowly sinking back into the veil, or the barrier.
Yeah, yeah.
Over
Over in the bushes.
Yeah, like the Simpsons meme. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if they had a moment where it was like, where it wasn't about advice, but it was just like actually hanging out, I feel like inevitably, they would crack jokes about Gojo.
Yeah.
I love both responses answer because I can see that feeling of when you go to the classroom and tell everybody with the material and like, we're supposed to bring that today. Well,
Yeah.
talk trash about what I can say.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for everything.
Of course.
So, guys, like always, remember follow us, everybody here on social media, and thank you very much to Crunchyroll for putting together this amazing opportunity. Remember, Crunchyroll.com, no ads, no weird ads, no shame, nothing we're going to find, no virus, just Crunchyroll.com, and follow us on the social media. So, guys, thank you so much.
Thanks, Onyx.
Thank
Appreciate
you, Onyx.
Good to see you again.
See you next episode. Sayonara.